While you may be thinking, let's turn this completely the other direction and live in the light, we have to address another debilitating behavior. Guess what? It's an oxymoron
these days.
Positivity,
Toxic
oh, that's a great thing.
positivity.
Toxic, that's a bad thing.
Right.
So you combine the two. So let's dive in here. What are we talking about, Doc?
It's the refusal to acknowledge that it is okay to not be okay. Everything doesn't have to be sunshine and rainbows and puppy dogs, right? It's okay to be able to say, you know what? Life is okay, but today is not a good day for me. So toxic positivity is when somebody always puts a positive spin on whatever.
No matter
you have
what it
going
is.
on. Right, no matter what. Well, it could be worse. You could be dead. You could be broke. You could be homeless. Right? No matter what, there's always a positive tail at the end.
Which isn't healthy. I mean, you've talked about it so many times on the show that if there's something going on inside you need to address it, and you need to properly process it, whether it's grieving, if you need to be sad, if you need to be reflective. It's part of the process of maintaining good mental health.
What is positivity? How can I be more positive? How can I remove all of the negative thoughts in my head? How can I just be better and improve and just be the best, happy version of myself? Well, these are not questions I'm actually asking myself, at least not at this stage in my life, definitely at some point. But these are the things we're searching up on Google. If you look up the keyword trends throughout the last 3 years specifically, you'll see that people are thriving for that positivity, change of mindset. They're wondering what is wrong with them if they're not constantly happy. And honestly, is this really a surprise? I'm gonna say no, because we are living in a society where being happy has kind of become an obligation. It can look different if you don't exactly know what I mean. So let's say you are going through something tough. You just lost your job and you're sharing this with your friend, and your friend responds with telling you should be happy with what you have rather than complaining or what you just lost. So that type of stuff, right? Where the immediate response is like, oh, look at the bright side of things. At least you're not in this and that situation, or it could be much worse. So that type of response kind of makes it hard for you to sit there with your emotions and think about what just happened and kind of process what just happened. So now you're feeling guilty that you felt these negative thoughts when truly you should be looking at the bright side. And this is exactly what we're going to focus on during this video, which is don't be a shitty friend, and don't let fake toxic positivity fool you into something that it's not. And if this sounds interesting to you, then please make sure to subscribe to my channel, because this is the type of content I'm doing here, kind of sort of mini documentaries about social issues as well as a little bit of true crime. So yeah, if this sounds good to you, again, subscribe, like this video, comment please your thoughts as well. I would really appreciate that. And without further ado, we're gonna dive into today's video. My name is Nika, by the way. Welcome to my channel. Let's get it. Stay positive and be kind are the most prominent Instagram highlights, and you may not think much of it at first, but an obsession with positive thinking is damaging to your mental health. Now, you might wonder, how could positivity possibly be considered a bad thing? And to put it in easy words, it's basically the message of being happy or optimistic in all situations, no matter what is going on in your life. Toxic positivity is basically a trend in which we don't allow any emotions to come up which could be considered negative. Something like anxiety, depression, or even grief. And all of this in favor of essentially surface level positive emotions. Although I do feel like it's a bit less now, but generally speaking, social media is full of instructions and ideas to help us get over and how to become our best selves. #goals. While the advice is often pretty unhealthy, both physically and mentally. And if you really think about it, when you're going through depression, or when you're really feeling it, when you're really going through a rough time, how helpful is the pressure of having to be positive really? When I'm going through it, I don't need nobody fucking telling me I need to smile. And I also notice that a lot of the times that positive type of persona is kind of associated with a very specific aesthetic, especially on Instagram, right? I'm just picturing that girl that wakes up every day at 5 a.m., meditates before she goes to the gym, comes home, has a very healthy breakfast, writes down in her gratitude book, then has a shower and kind of like lived half a day before even 8 a.m., which is really unrealistic for the average person, right? With an average 9 to 5, people that have to commute to work, for example. It's just not maintainable as well. Even if you manage to do all of that, then how are you going to maintain it long term? Like most of us, you've probably followed Instagram accounts that exclusively post motivational quotes, and maybe you've even owned at least one gratitude journal, happiness diary, or even a positivity planner, like I did myself. I even have a whole Instagram page with only positive quotes, and it's something I will address later again. But the point being, when you go through something as serious as losing your job or someone you love, posting a great motivational quote in response is not going to pay the bills, and sharing a positive images of a sunrise is not going to bring back someone who has passed away. So being happy is great, obviously, but the idea that we need to maintain that level of happiness at all times, or otherwise it would be considered a failure, is extremely toxic. Now we're going to do a little exercise, all right? We're going to play a little game. I am going to give you different examples of toxic positivity that may have happened to you that you have not recognized. And in the comments, you let me know how many of those have happened to you, because I guarantee you it will be at least 2 of them. All right. So my very first example, thinking that if you're not constantly at 100% doing something productive, you are wasting time. So I don't know about you, but I used to follow a lot of entrepreneurial websites, and they would really make you feel guilty if you are not productive all the time. Not just entrepreneurial websites, but even like some other influencers that were pretending like during the whole lockdown they would get up every day at 5 a.m, do this, do that, when really most of us were just trying to get through the day without crying. So that's toxic. Example number 2, parents telling their kids that they should never complain because a lot of people have it worse than them. This literally invalidates the feelings of the child, which can lead them to not wanting to share anymore because they're not sure if what they're feeling is valid or not valid, so they just keep it bottled up. Now, if a child doesn't learn to express their emotions and feelings, this for sure will follow them into adult life. And imagine an adult that can't address or speak about their emotions and how they feel. That can lead to a lot of serious issues and kind of hinder them from building true relationships, if you know what I mean. Like, this can have some serious damaging side effects. Example number 3. When you went through or going through something tough and someone tells you that it shouldn't affect you the way it does because you're stronger than that. Just because you're strong, it doesn't mean that things don't affect you. And just because something affects you doesn't make you weak. So whoever said that to you, tell them to shut the fuck up, honestly. Example number 4. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, this one is going to be a bit controversial for me, because I think, in my opinion, if you tell yourself that what doesn't kills you makes you stronger, and you truly believe that, I think that's absolutely fine. However, I think if you're going through something, nobody else should tell you that, simply because we are quite educated on that subject. We know that people are going through things that they're not sharing, and they quite literally die over this. So if you are that person who ever said that to someone, please don't do that anymore. I definitely said that before to people, and I will never say it again, honestly. Like, my whole perspective of this changed, and just don't. My 5th and final example, somebody telling you it's all in your mind, just think happy thoughts, and happiness is a choice. I do believe happiness is a choice, but I do believe there's a time and place for everything. So if today is not the time where you choose happiness, that's fine. And that's nobody's business, because you cannot be happy all the time. Like, sometimes you go through situations that are not happy. So yeah, happiness is not a choice in that sense. It is a choice in some situations where maybe something upsetting happens, something really small, and you're like, you know what, I rather don't want this to ruin my day, and I choose to ignore it and be happy instead. That's fine. If you're going through something and you're like, you know what, this month I'm not happy, then so be it. That's absolutely fine. So let nobody tell you happiness is a choice when it's not quite literally a choice like that as they make it sound. Now, how did we get here? When did we start putting so much emphasis on being happy and positive to the point where we rather go into a state of delusion than experiencing real emotions? Well, I guess as we started to talk more and more about mental health, and as the world faced more challenges, we understandably looked for ways to cope with all of that. What I've seen a lot during the thing we can't talk about on YouTube, some people's response was to be overly positive and optimistic, which results in avoidance of experiencing the painful emotions and the truth that came with the reality of the situation. And social media has played a major role in this. Well, it is 2022, so I hope by now we all understand that social media, especially Instagram, is more like the reel of highlights, where we typically post the positives rather than the not so positive realities we all experience at times. And if you consume too much of this during a time where you are the most vulnerable, where you personally feel like a piece of shit, it can make you feel ashamed and not enough, or suppress your emotions altogether if you don't feel like you perform enough. The pressure to be perfect at all times leads us further away from who we truly are at our core, which is a huge problem because it limits our ability to grow and evolve and be truly ourselves. If you think about it, it's kind of like a double-sided sword, because we are speaking so much about mental health and how important it is, but if you think about the way how we're talking about mental health is always from a place of recovery, is always from a place on, oh, how can we come out the other side type of conversation. And I wonder why that is. Are we afraid to feel what we're truly feeling, if that makes sense? Are we afraid to let our true feelings come through and shine and talk? And if so, is this because we don't want to be labeled negative? Is it because we're kind of afraid to be vulnerable, kind of afraid of public's perception? Or are we just like lying to ourselves? It's very important to actually allow your feelings to be felt, simply because how are you gonna move on? How can you be in a place of healing? If we want to speak about recovery, how can you be in a place of healing if you haven't felt your true emotions? So what are you exactly healing from? And are you really healing, or are you just pretending you are? How can we truly work on our mental health if we're not being honest? I do have an Instagram page which is dedicated to positivity and positive quotes. And I started it also during the thing we can't speak on YouTube. And I truly believed what I was posting. Like, I created everything myself. It wasn't like I was reposting stuff. I was literally coming up with the quotes or researching quotes, make it visually pleasing and all of that. And then one day I was like, am I being fake? Because when I looked at my feed, it didn't really feel like that was coming from me. I just suddenly didn't identify with what I was saying anymore. And I stopped posting. Why make you feel like you have to be in that mindset when I'm not in this mindset? It just made me feel like I'm being so inauthentic, and being authentic is one of the most important things for me, not just for my social media, but I mean for my whole entire real life. And then one day realizing that you're actually not being authentic at all is such a punch to your stomach. And don't get me wrong, right? I'm not saying we all need to be authentic at all times, and I'm not saying we all need to be honest at all times on social media, because you're literally opening yourself up to a bunch of strangers that are going to have an opinion. So I'm not going to be honest all the time, but I want to be authentic. So my journey of finding out who I truly am on social media is still continuing. but I know what I'm not. We are expected to always show up, perform at our best, live our best life, divert any bad energy into good energy, always compliment others, smile, be happy, be grateful, be mindful, be strong, be forward thinking, plan ahead, be career focused, but also family focused, and be selfless, but also love yourself, and blah, 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 blah. The list goes on, but I'm not buying into this anymore. And I wish for you that you will stop buying into this anymore as well if you are. So how do we deal with this? We can't choose the emotions we feel, but we can choose to allow ourselves to feel them and accept them. And saying this might be controversial because I know a lot of people think we can actually control what we feel, but hopefully by now you have understood that if you think you can control what you feel, you're probably just suppressing your truth. Stay realistic with yourself and avoid comparing your behind the scenes to somebody else's highlights reel and the expectation that you're supposed to be happy. Sit with your feelings, both positive and negative. Negative emotions are not necessarily bad, and we do need to feel them and live them and take the space and time that we need to get over them if we want to. We are easily led into thinking in very black and white terms. Life is complicated and we want to simplify it. So if society tells us that positivity is good and negative is bad, it helps us function. But constant positivity isn't something to aim for. Anyone who daily posts on Instagram writing captions about being motivated or inspiring or inspired or positive, they're lying and they're fake as fuck. Single or not, successful or not, 5 followers or 5 million, they're probably the exact opposite off camera as what they pretend to be on camera. And although we've now spoken a lot about how you have to experience your negative emotions, if you do suffer from depression or anxiety, or if you just can't seem to get out of bed every morning, or you just can't get yourself out of a down period, a very long down period, then please make sure you get yourself some help. There's a difference between allowing to feel negative emotions or being in a seriously bad place where you do need to seek professional help to help you get out of it. Now, before we're closing off this video, I just want to remind you to be a good friend. If somebody comes to you with a tough situation they're going through or some difficult emotions they're feeling at the time, please just listen. Sometimes people share things just to get it off their chest. They don't necessarily wanting to get some advice. They don't necessarily want to get some feedback. They don't necessarily want to hear speak at all unless they actually ask. And if they do ask for advice, then please make sure you really think through your words and your choices, and yeah, just be a good friend, man. Yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this. I would also love to know if you have ever been that friend to tell somebody, to give somebody a piece of toxic positivity advice, or the other way around. If you were ever at the receiving end of this, please let me know in the comments. I would love to start a conversation about this whole thing. And I also hope to see you in my next video. And yeah, that's it for me. See you.